everyone. My name is Rebecca Nelson. I'm the Wine Club Director here at Becker Vineyards, and we're so excited that you guys are joining us for our very first virtual tasting. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the 2017 Viognier Reserve, and that actually just recently won the gold medal at the San Francisco Chronicle Wine Competition. We're really excited to share this wine with you and hope that you thoroughly enjoy it. We, of course, have some great people on our panel tonight. Dr. Richard Becker, our owner and proprietor, and also our winemaker, Jon Leahy. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and they will take great care of you and make sure that you are adding questions on our Facebook feed so we can answer those at the end. Enjoy. Cheers.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jon Leahy. I'm the winemaker at Becker Vineyards, and this distinguished gentleman in the background is the owner, Dr. Becker. We'd both like to thank you and welcome you to our first virtual tasting. Tonight, we are tasting the 2017 Reserve Viognier from Texas. If this is not the bottle you have open, you may consider opening it and joining us. Doc, why don't you tell us a little bit about the background of the winery and how you also...
I will. I want to say at the beginning, though, that I realize how lighthearted this is at a time of real emergency in the United States and around the world. And I just want to say hello to all my colleagues in medicine and nursing and hospital administration and first responders, that this is a lighthearted moment. I know during the Battle of the Blitz and during other times of great calamity on our planet, a little lightheartedness has been good, and I hope you'll look at it this way. This is wine that I'm very proud of. We were the first to plant this in Texas, first to make it. I remember one of our advisors said, don't plant this. Nobody can even pronounce it. And it was my wife Bunny's favorite wine, and she said, Viognier, like YMCA. That's how you do it. But it's been a great success for us. I think it's become the white wine of Texas, and I'm very proud of what Jon is making.
Perfect. Well, I think it's important when you're talking about any wine, I think we need to talk about the growers and where the grapes come from. So this wonderful version of Viognier is Texas High Plains through and through. So the two growers that are predominant in this particular blend are Farmhouse Vineyards in Meadow, Texas, and Wilmeth Vineyards, Diamante Doble Dos over in Tokyo, Texas. The first time I had to go to Jet's Vineyard in Tokyo, I drove through that town 4 times before I realized that I had passed through that town. So to say that it is a tiny town in West Texas is almost an understatement. But there is nothing small about the flavor and the quality of those grapes. And if it were not for our wonderful partners, growing partners, our vineyard partners, we would not be where we are today in a lot of respects. So,
Jon, and let me add about growers. When we first planted this, there were probably only 60 or 70 acres of Viognier planted in the world. And it was famous for the planting in Condrieu in the northern Rhone Valley, and a famous property there, Chateau Grillé, had a real cult following. That was the first Viognier that I ever tasted. And Bunny and I made a trip there, and we met Madame Grillé. She came out, and she said, why are you here? And I said, well, we wanted to see your property. We wanted to taste your wine, and we were trying to grow this in Texas. And she said, well, how much did you plan to buy? And I said, well, how much will you sell me? And she said, 2 bouteilles, 2 bottles. And I said, I'll take them. And so we brought them back, and those were much prized, opened 1 bottle about every 5 years as a remembrance of seeing Chateau Grillé.
That's awesome. That is perfect. Well, if you've all poured your glass of wine, I want you all to go ahead and raise the glass, go ahead and give it a bit of a swirl, and then, who's the jokester now, buddy? And then give it a nice
a straw, Jon. A straw allows you to drink it faster.
Great. You do understand we are live.
And we're trying to remain live, I think, is the name of it.
Exactly. Give it a smell, and then let's give it a taste. Preferably not through a straw. Thank you for making me almost choke. So One of the things that I absolutely love about Viognier is the floral quality of this wine. And we were speaking earlier. Yes, it's a lot better if you move the straw to the side. um, the the quality of this wine in Texas really surprised me the first couple of years I was making wine here. Coming from the West Coast, I noticed that the florals were much more intense in the fruit here in Texas, and it as a winemaker, and by no means an expert on anything other than what I really love, is the idea that these florals were really predominant, and that white peach and almost licorice or herbal edge in Viognier really comes forward in this wine. And I've noticed that with several Texas Viogniers, that the florals manage to really just come forward, and that's one of the things I love about it. And when very important to me to express that having a floral or a flowery smell in the wine does not in any way indicate that that wine is sweet. It just tells us that it's been made in a really nice environment and that everything that we love about white wine is kept intact.
You know,
Uh,
John, and many people may know, but not everybody, that we had kind of a Paris tasting with Viognier. I guess 4 or 5 years ago, we sent one of your Viogniers along with Viogniers from two other Texas wineries and to Lyon to a blind tasting of Viognier, all the rest of it being French, primarily from Condrieu, and all with French wine judges. And the three Texas Viogniers scored the top three positions above all of the French Viogniers. It was, I think, a wonderful thing. I think we make the best Viognier in the world. I think our Viognier is better than California. I realize how biased I am, but I really do. Somehow there's something in our soil, and I think your winemaking, John, that makes a difference.
I'm sorry, my speaker was cutting out. I thought you said something nice about me. Well, the next thing too, also about this Viognier is the some of the questions, and for our audience tonight, please type in your questions now, and we will would love to answer some of them. Anything that you have about the wine specifically would be great. In general, about the winery, certainly. Anyway, the way we make the wine here at Becker Vineyards, when we get that lovely fruit in from our growers, we actually grade the fruit as it comes across the crush pad. We crush it, we press it, we settle it in tank, very cold, settling for several days. Then we take off that clarified juice, and that's the portion that we ferment. One of the things that I like to do is keep it on a very cool ferment. Most of the wine is kept below 60 degrees Fahrenheit during fermentation. The other thing that I like to do is take a portion of it and put it in all brand new French oak. And that has always been one of Dr. Becker's favorite things for me to do is
It takes
take
my
all
breath
that
away.
nice, expensive French oak and put it on the white wine. What it does, after about 18 months, it builds that beautiful body, but it also keeps those florals intact. The cool ferment keeps all that subtlety there. That barrel ferment keeps that body really going, which I really much enjoy about that. And we have a lot of fun doing this. We have about 5 different vineyards that we get Viognier from. So every year we have this wonderful treasure to deal with. What? Any comments about the barrel program?
For me,
Yes, sir.
well, yeah, it's a serious investment at the end of the year, but I think what's produced is totally satisfactory.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
I'm sorry, no. Well, and I think I think making wine in the French style, which is what we do, it involves fermentation in the barrels, some degree of malolactic fermentation, some blending of wine that's in stainless steel with the oak. I think it gets a nice balance of acid and fruit and the vanilla character from barrel. I think it's a wonderful style.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, the fermentation itself. So we do actually use 3 different cultured yeasts on the Viognier. The first 3 years that we dealt with the Viognier, like from the farmhouse vineyards, we found we split that lot up into several micro lots and used different yeasts on there to see how it would behave. And from that, we decided the yeast that we would use for that vineyard. And that's pretty much how we've done each of the vineyards as we've added Viogniers from different growers there in West Texas. We've played with a little bit of each one to see if the yeast would bring out a specific expression or not. Some yeast can be very, very neutral, and others could really accentuate the florals or some of the body that produces glycerol, that heavy weight on the palate. And that's one of the things that I like about Viognier, is it tends to be a little heavier than other white wines. So it really is a white wine that goes well with heavier foods. Through fermentation, we're able to take part of it, keep it very light and floral, and another part of it we build for body, and then we come back and blend those two Viogniers back together, often from the same vineyard, just to see where we go from there. And I've been asked to keep it geek light on the fermentation. But Doc, would you speak to this specifically, because you and I both have spent a lot of time discussing fermentations and the kinetics therein?
I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't think I have an answer to that, but I do think it's interesting that I think we make some of the best Viognier in the world, and the area in the top of the Rhone Valley near Condrieu is so similar to our part of the hill country, and also a lot of stone fruit, a lot of peach and nectarines are grown in that part of the Rhone Valley in the region where the Viognier does so well, and certainly that's true in Gillespie County, where I think Viognier has been great, and maybe it's something in the soil. Maybe it's, I don't know how much of it is yeast and fermentation and barrel, and how much just an expression of that part of the world.
Doc, I apologize, and I'm apologizing to all of our community. Your volume suddenly left on my particular iPad.
Okay,
So I
I don't know.
hear you.
I haven't changed anything.
It's okay. I think we can get through this. I think everybody else can hear you. It's just me specifically. The biggest thing I think we need to talk about too is the fact that you were the first grower of Viognier in the state, and unfortunately that did not work out too well in the hill country. But we were able to find Viognier grown in the high plains to satisfy our needs from our different partners, as I was speaking about earlier. Do you talk about why you planted the Viognier initially, please?
I think I planted Viognier because we liked it a lot, and nobody knew anything about it in Texas when we planted it, including advisors from Texas A&M, and it was. But I thought it would, I wanted to make wines that were real wines. I didn't want to make wines where sugar was added. I think partially the conventional wisdom in Texas was that Texans wanted wine that was sweet or partially sweet, and we didn't like that. I didn't want to make it, and I wanted to make wines that we loved, and I thought maybe that the complex flavor of Viognier would catch on. I think it has. I think we're lucky in that regard, but it was really just loving it, and the other thing we were thinking about was that if we're a new wine industry, a new part of the world. If we could develop varietals that were a little bit atypical, that would give us maybe a first leg up. Maybe our first Cabernet or Chardonnay wasn't going to compete with the best in the world. I didn't know that, but I was trying to find unusual varietals that might help establish us, and Viognier was on that list.
Yeah. So, what's one of your favorite foods to pair with this wine?
Say again, I'm sorry?
What's one of your favorite foods to pair with this wine?
A straw, John. A black.
A straw? Oh, okay.
No, honestly, almost any fish dish, shellfish, oysters, but I think fish primarily.
Right. Okay. I'm going to go out on a limb here, just because it really is one of my favorite things to do. I love a pulled pork sandwich with Viognier.
I'll bet. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it goes really well together. And plus, I'm getting a little hungry. So, so I would love to answer some questions. So I think we need to find some questions here. One of the things that has come across is the how long do we age the wine? and why did we age it? And I think we've answered a little bit of that with the barrels, but one of the reasons we age the wine, honestly, is that it does allow those subtle characteristics to come forward. We really do need to allow time for the terpenes to cleave open that allow the florals to come out in the wine. Also, by aging in oak, one of the tricks, if you age the wine in new oak, if you take it out too early, it has a lot of oak flavor. It's almost counterintuitive. You need to leave that fresh wine in new oak longer in order to resolve the toasted flavors and come up with a more rounded flavor profile on the wine. And this has always been I think, a source of great debate at our winery. How long do we leave the white wines in the barrel?
Right.
So what? Okay, so one of the questions I just got to here too is, what is the favorite wine you've made? And I think this can go for both of us. And I want you to answer this one first, Doc, and then I certainly do have a favorite. But what is the favorite wine that you've made or that we've made at the winery?
Well, Viognier would certainly be one of them, but it's a long list, and you know, I think I've loved some of our Cabernets, our Merlots, our certainly the recent Counois and Cinsault and that we've made. Um, I've loved the Rosan Marsan blend that we call Prairie Cuvée. I don't think I have just one, but Viognier has always been a very favorite.
It is hard to choose, and you said Counois, and I was like, yeah, that really was a spectacular wine, and that was a lot of fun to deal with. But one of the things that I've very much enjoyed, we haven't actually bottled it yet. It's that 2012 Madeira that I hid away, 10 barrels that I've hidden in the back of the winery. Now I'm going to have to move them since I said it. And we now know where they're at. But the Madeira program has been an absolute joy. I love making that style of wine, and it takes years to get it done. And it's not a wine for an impatient person like myself, but I very much enjoy that. What was the first year that we produced Viognier at the winery?
Well, we planted it, and the first planting was probably '93,
Mm-hmm.
and so we 95, 96 would be among the first, and it was a spectacular wine. And that's the wine that Robert Mondavi tasted at the Austin Food and Wine Festival, and he really liked it, and he bought a bottle of it at auction that night. And some of the Republic people told me that they were in his office as recently as 5 years ago, and that magnum of our Viognier from 96 was still on his sideboard in his office. And
Nice.
he never told me that or why. He was a wonderful friend to us at our winery in so many ways. The funniest thing, though, was when he was tasting the Viognier. Remember how brilliant this man was. He's tasting it. He's looking at me, and he begins to ask questions. And he questioned me for 45 minutes. And a big crowd formed at this food and wine event in Austin. And I realized that he didn't think we'd made the wine. I think maybe he thought it was too good. It was too spread. It really was wonderful. And at the end of that time, being a wonderfully honest person, he said to me, "You made this wine." And I said, "Yes, we did." And he said, "Keep it up." And that's among the many great positive things he said to us.
That's a great vote of confidence, actually.
It was.
That's awesome.
My goodness, yeah.
Another question we have here is, when did you plant the grapes for this Viognier vintage? Well, we actually did not plant them here at Becker Vineyards, but I know that the farmhouse vineyard started planting the Viognier, gosh, almost a decade ago now.
Yeah.
So it was early on. I came on board in 2012, and they had just planted and were planting some of their Viognier there. I know they had some producing. Some of that is actually a little bit older. And then I know the Viognier we get from Bingham, and I'm not sure when Cliff planted that Viognier, but it had to be back in the 2005, 2006, somewhere around there. What area of Texas is the grape grown? Well, I think we've talked about it. We did try growing it here in the Hill Country, but this Viognier really does well up in what we call the high plains, which
Well,
is
the Viognier,
centered.
it did famously here, except for Pierce's disease. You know, we've never
Yeah,
made a
Pierce
better,
disease. Yeah.
never made a
Well,
Viognier better one than the 96 from grapes grown on our estate.
well, and we are far enough south
Yeah,
on that line about where Pierce is really going to take over,
yeah,
and where Vinefra doesn't do very well. I mean, you get much further south than here, and it starts to really struggle. There's a lot of environmental pressure on grapes. I mean,
uh-huh,
there's enough here up in the hill country. Up in the high plains, I like it because it isn't as humid. They do have some pretty strong daylight hours, and they of course they get the dormancy that they need up there too. It does get cold in the winter.
right.
So the grapes for this particular vintage, for the 2017 Reserve Viognier, came from the Texas High Plains, which centers around Brownfield and Lubbock area. Um, this is a great question. I like questions like this. How long would you want the Viognier to breathe? What temperature is best to serve at? Doc, why don't you field that one?
Well, I think it likes probably about 45 degrees in that ballpark. Not cold as an ice box, but you know, not much warmer than that. And I think it always opens up in the glass. I've not I love to decant wine. I've not decanted this wine because I think it does so well just sort of straight out of the bottle. What do you think about that, John?
Well, I think you're right. I do like Viognier a little on the chill side, and I've told people, like, don't be afraid of popping this wine in the refrigerator, even overnight in your regular house refrigerator, but bring it out an hour before service. Open it about 30 minutes before you're going to drink the wine, and pour it and let it decant in the glass. And I actually poured this glass about an hour before we went live here, and it's doing wonderfully well. But this was in a very cold refrigerator, so I felt confident about doing that. But it's opened up beautifully,
Yep.
actually.
Good.
The okay, what was the what's easy to make and pair well with Viognier? So, what are some of the dishes that are easy to make and pair well with Viognier? I have to tell you again, reiterate my pulled pork sandwich, but we make a white bean soup at home that I
I
think
bet that
pairs
would be
very
good.
well
Yeah.
with Viognier.
Uh-huh.
And we actually, one of the shortcuts that we like to do, if we want the wine to pair very well with the food, we actually pour a little bit of the wine in that food to cook it, be it a sauce or a soup. We add a little bit of the wine in there to help meld the flavors, and it seems to be a nice little trick.
The best preparation I've seen was about 20 years ago. A chef from San Antonio asked if we would give him some lees from the tank where the Viognier had been fermenting. And that's a collection of yeast particles and wine solids that are at the bottom. It's sort of a white, milky, fairly thick. And we gave him 5 gallons from the bottom of the tank. He took that home and he marinated salmon overnight in the Viognier lees and then cooked it and then served it with the current Viognier that we were releasing. And that was an amazing pairing of a fish dish with Viognier.
It sounds amazing, but I will go out again on a limb and say that's probably not easy to do at home.
Probably not.
But one more question, and then we have to wrap this up. But what makes the oak so subtle in this wine is the question.
That's a good question. I think partly it's wonderful oak. It's primarily Allier oak from France. I guess maybe 100% Allier oak, which is my favorite.
Yes.
And it's certainly the great oak pairing for Chardonnay from Burgundy. And it's delicate. And the Viognier fruit stands up to this oak very nicely. It was amazing for me to learn how important the expression of oak flavor is in wine, both white and red, until I began to do it and began tasting out of the barrels and really began to understand how that goes. John knows infinitely more than I about this, but it's this particular fruit with this particular oak species just goes well together.
It does, and I think one of the things that makes it so subtle in the wine, again, back to the length of aging that we do in the barrel. We allow it to resolve itself, so you don't get as many of the toasted notes from that barrel. That and the tightness of the grain, again, back to the Allier barrel. It's a very tight grained barrel. It's about 18 growth lines per inch on the barrel. It's a very tight grain, so it was grown in a very cool forest. It's one of the things that allows white wine to age very well in that French oak. Okay, Doc, I think we need to lift our glasses and toast our friends, colleagues, and our wonderful supporters. And I'm putting an umbrella in your glass next time. And to wish them great health and wonderful wine. And if we did not get to your questions today, we will be doing a Q&A video right after this broadcast, and we'll be posting it up. And then I would like to remind everybody, and I'm sorry I have to read off my cheat sheet, our next Becker Vineyards virtual tour will be on this Wednesday at 5:30 p.m., and we will be discussing the Provençal Rosé. If you got the 3-bottle shipment, then you have the Provençal already. If you haven't and would like to join in, you can find the Provençal at your favorite retailer here in Texas. It is distributed all throughout the state. Your favorite bottle shop or grocery store will carry it. We also will be continuing to have these virtual tastings every week while we are all cooped up inside or on our limited schedule as it is. And we would love for you to join us in that. So look forward to your emails tomorrow with information about the next 3-bottle pickup for next week, or pack up for next week. And beyond that, again, cheers to everybody, and thank you for joining us on this broadcast.
Cheers.
Cheers.